Hello everyone and welcome to this video. So this is the review of round 2 between our teammate BobFisga playing with white versus adrienb96, and we're gonna see what happened. He opened with e4 here, c5, knight f3, and now d6, and he picks this d4 line, the open Sicilian, very nice. C takes d4, knight takes d4, now knight f6, hitting the pawn on e4, so knight c3, he just covers the pawn. And now here black chooses to play the Najdorf. Bob goes for bishop g5, which is the main line. Most solid move in this position. Black goes for e6, also very solid. And here bishop c4 by Bob, which cannot be a bad move, of course, but probably after e6, simply the move f4, the main line, is definitely slightly better than bishop c4. But as I mentioned, bishop c4 cannot be bad. You can maybe try to expand your opening repertoire and make some research here. The ideas are just to go with queen f3, g4, h4, h5. Use the pawn mass there on the on the king side. Blanch all the pawns there. Okay, so bishop c4 was played, and now bishop e7. And as I'm pointing out here, bishop b3 is usually the best way to continue when you develop your bishop to c4 to prevent any tempos with b5, so that b5 is not hitting you with tempo and just stay on the diagonal here. Here he went queen d2, which is a slight inaccuracy. Slightly better was just simply the move bishop b3. As mentioned, just getting away from this b5 tempo, staying on the a2 g8 diagonal, because sometimes we want these ideas with f4 f5 and try to gain control over the d5 square, soften the d6 pawn a little bit. And also this bishop on this diagonal, sometimes we have some sacrifices on e6, and I'm gonna show you here. I'm gonna go back to the move 6 here. I'm just showing this after a6. I'm just showing this bishop c4 Fischer-Sossin line because I want to illustrate how these sacrifices on e6 work. For example, here after bishop c4, the main line is e6, and after bishop b3, which is also the main line, let's say black goes knight bd7, and now let's say white castles here, and after bishop e7, this is what I'm talking about. Here comes the sack on e6. Once this bishop is no longer securing the pawn on e6, because it's currently blocked by the knight on d7, we have this very interesting sacrifice, because after f e6 and knight takes e6, we can see that the queen is hanging here. Knight takes g7 is pending, and for example, let's say black goes queen b6, now knight takes g7 check, and we get 3 pawns for the piece, and it is just a humongous attack. We have some very nice squares over here, outposts for our knights on f5, and as well as d5, and the position is almost collapsing here for black already. So that's what I'm referring to when I say that there are some sacks there on e6 sometimes. Something to keep in mind, just drop your bishop back here. Usually in the Najdorf is a good idea to maintain your bishop on this diagonal. Also, sometimes if the pawn goes to e5 and relinquishes control over the d5 square, you can put a piece there on the potential hole on the d5 square. Okay, so queen d2 was played. Slight inaccuracy, but of course it cannot be completely bad because you're developing your queen, you're preparing long castles. I understand the idea. b5 here by black, trying to expand there on the queen side and and in anticipation for white castling long there. Bishop d3, and now queen c7, and here Bob goes queen e3. Moving the queen twice in the opening is almost never a good idea because you need to develop your other pieces, get your rooks connected, and complete your development basically. After queen c7, he should have used maybe castle short, completing the development. Because this queen e3 move, I don't understand honestly the purpose of playing this queen e3 move. Maybe he wants to swing over here, maybe would be an idea, but usually it's not a good idea to move your queen twice. So queen c7, and now queen e3 was played. Mention a slight inaccuracy maybe there. Knight d7 by black, and now he castles short. b4, trying to remove the knight from the defense of the e4 pawn. Combination with bishop e7 and knight c5. Black is following here some very typical plan in the knight door for black, attacking the pawn on e4. Okay, so knight e2, and now black goes knight e5, which is also a slight inaccuracy. Probably I shouldn't mention that many or criticize the play of black because we're focusing on our teammate BobFisga, but will also be somewhat helpful, no, for some other teammates that maybe play the knight off, let's say. Here after knight c2, slightly better was just simply castle here, and your knight doesn't belong to e5, your knight belongs to c5, as I mentioned, just putting pressure here, and your bishop goes to b7 and charge everything that black has to the e4 pawn. Okay, so knight e5, and now here Bob decides to take on f6, which is also a slight inaccuracy. After knight e5, he should have just gone f4 and not be afraid of knight g4, because after queen g3 we're gonna play something like h3, and the knight is only gonna have the h6 square, which sometimes we can take, and we can see there is pressure on the e7 pawn, which sometimes could be hanging in some lines. For instance, let's say if black tries something like bishop b7, we can already play h3 here, and after knight h6 there is this very nice shot with rook f2. And if black tries knight takes e4, we can just simply take on e4. Black cannot take on g5, because then there is this in-between move, bishop takes b7, and two pieces are hanging. The rook on a8 is hanging, g5 is hanging, and black is losing huge material here. So after knight e4, bishop takes. If black decides to take on e4, we simply have here bishop takes e7. Taking with the queen will be a mistake, because now after queen takes g7, we're already putting pressure on two pieces, h8 and h6, and it's gonna be really bad for black here. So after bishop takes e7, the best move is king takes e7 to connect the rooks. And now when we take on g7, at least the rook is already defended, but still is fairly decent for white to take here on g7. And this could be an example line of why f4 was slightly better than bishop takes f6. Okay, so Bob took on f6. Black recaptured, and now he went for f4. And here black decided to go on knight g4, unbelievably. But he should have maybe just taken on d3 and get the bishop pair. Now it's just two bishops in an open position against two knights, which is it's really dangerous. So knight g4 here. Bob goes queen f3. Very nice, putting some x-ray on the rook on a8. Black decided to take on d4. And after knight takes, play the move queen c5, pinning the knight. Here Bob takes on g4, and after queen takes d4 you skin h1. Now there is pressure here, although the queen is already defending. Black use castles, rook b1 defending the pawn here on b2, and now g6. And when I see this position, the first thing that comes to my mind is white needs to attack here. The pawn structure is already indicating the side of the board where the action for white is going to be taken, and white has more space here on the king side, so they must attack there. Black has more space on the queen side, so there's where their play is going to be going on. And you can see that our bishop is already pointing here. This rook can come over on the third and attack the black king maybe. We have some f5 ideas. We have some h4, h5 ideas as well. We have many of these ideas. And white really needs to attack. So after g6, Bob goes queen g3, which goes against this idea of attacking, or maybe it's not a completely bad move, but because it's stepping out of this x-ray of the bishop, but maybe a little bit better was something like queen g5 with the mindset, as I already mentioned, of attacking. You get away from this x-ray of the queen and this x-ray of the bishop. You prepare maybe queen h6, h4, h5, f5 is on the cards, rook f3, rook h3, and create some attack. Sometimes the position demands you to attack, and you need to play what the position is demanding. You cannot just say, you know what, I'm gonna play an endgame, or you know what, I'm gonna play on the queen side, because you cannot play on the queen side. You're gonna lose there if you try to do something here, some progress on the queen side. Okay, so queen g3 by Bob, stepping out of that x-ray, also this x-ray. Now bishop e7 by black, and here queen f2, and this queen trade, as I already mentioned, doesn't favor you at all, because you need to attack. The black king must get into fire there. You need to launch all your pawns here and try to get something going there on the king side. Okay, so queen f2, and now black knows that his play is gonna be on the queen side, and without queens, he's gonna have basically a free hand here to get something going on the queen side, make some progress there. Goes d5, and now Bob decides to take on d5, which also should be a little bit, precise, because after d5 he should play something like e5, try to fix the pawns on light squares, make the black light square bishop a little bit worse. After e5, what Bob is doing here is trading his e-pawn, and once the bishop recaptures on d5, he's improving black's bishop here. Now he goes from a slightly worse square to a much better square on d5, where it's very nice, supported by the pawn on e6. He's putting pressure on a2 and is really threatening to take on a2, because after bishop a2, he's going to be putting pressure on the rook here on a2. Like they have no time to play something like b3, trapping the bishop, because the rook will be hanging. Okay, so after bishop d5 goes a4 here, Bob, which is another slight inaccuracy. Maybe slightly better was something like rook a1, but you try some a3, and hopefully you open up the a file, putting pressure on the a6 pawn, maybe. with some help from black. A4 is just trying to just fixing another pawn on light square, basically. Goes A5. Of course, black is trying to fix his target, trying to attack the pawn on A4. Now B3. Again, fixing another pawn on light square, and it's just never gone. This bishop is gonna have a lot of targets here. Everything on light. Okay, black goes rook c8. And now rook d1 here. Maybe it's a bit too passive, this move. The endgame 99% of the time have to play as active as possible, or you're gonna be suffering for a large number of moves. If you play passively, you're gonna require high precision on every move, and defending a bad position for a long time is really not easy. You're most likely gonna blunder at some point. So maybe after rook c8, slightly better was something like rook e1, trying to get rook e5 and hopefully put some pressure on the a5 pawn, double rooks, and try to get something going there. Maybe you can move your king, play g4 f5, and try to get something going maybe there. Of course, black is better, but you have to try something. Okay, so rook d1 was played, and now rook c3. This is just very nice move, using this outpost for the rook, and now it's prepared to double. You can see that there are already some ideas, introducing the ideas as we saw in the game, which was a very nice tactic, by the way, by the opponent adrienb96. That was a really nice shot, what we're gonna see next. After rook c3, Bob goes rook d2, which is again another passive move. Really don't like this because you're just gonna be doomed, and if you don't have activity, black is gonna have everything here, everything they want, and you're not gonna be able to move a single piece in the end. Maybe after rook c3, slightly better was something like rook e2. Try to get active, again the same idea. And as I already mentioned, you want to have as much activity as possible in the endgame. After rook d2, black goes rook c8, just follows his plan. And now bishop a6 here, which is a mistake. The rook c8 slightly better was something like king g1. You are already preparing against these background issues that you may have in future, and also you want your king to get as closer as possible in the endgame. Remember, the king is a very important piece in the endgame, and you want to get it as closer as possible to the center, usually in the endgame, to the action. So this bishop a6 move is a slight mistake there. Black just simply goes rook c5. And now after bishop d3, which is probably the losing move, again after rook c5, king g1, get the king closer and prophylaxis against the back rank issues. After bishop d3, black found a very nice move here. If you like, you can pause the video if you haven't seen the game, but you probably already have. Here the move is bishop takes b3, a very nice shot by black. Honestly, I honestly would have fell for this under time pressure. I I have to admit it that I would have blundered maybe this same tactic. So yeah, that was a nice shot. And after c takes b3, the move is rook takes b3, eliminating the defender of the f1 square, because if black would have played something like rook c1, there was always rook f1 or bishop f1, and then and then white is up a piece there. So after rook takes d3, obviously you cannot take because that would be a mate on c1, back rank mate. Not a good idea. So after rook d3, Bob has to play something like h3, which is what he does, gifting some luft for his king. Here black just takes on b3 and proceeds to win this very nice endgame with how many pawns is black up here? He's up 2 pawns, but has a really strong passer here on the b4 square, and it is even protected, which is oof. And the rooks are very active, not only the 2 pawns. Bob goes rook d8, king g7, and probably I should proceed to roll the game a little bit faster now, because just hope-wise for white, honestly, I don't think I can suggest many moves here. Rook a8, now rook f3, trying to maybe trade there. Now he takes on a4, and now he's 2 connected pass pawns. The game is over basically there. In h2, rook a2. Something that I really would like to say is that Bob really tried as much as he could to maybe get a stalemate or continue the game. Maybe black mouse lips and blunders the rook somehow. So that's something that I really liked about him. He continued for as much as he could. f5 takes, and it's just yeah, it's lost. h4, a3, even gives the check here. Roll move maybe there, or I don't know what happened there. Maybe it was a mouse slip, but okay, it was lost anyways. Takes. Now proceeds to play up to the mate. Black goes for the 2 queens here. And now queen g7 check, king g5, queen c1, king h4, and the next move is gonna be mate. So I hope this was of any use for our teammate BobFisga, and thanks everyone for watching.